Hello, hello, and welcome to Airica on Air. Grab your coffee, grab your tea, and come chat with me. Today, I have a dear, dear friend on the podcast. I'm so excited to share her with y'all. My friend Hillary Froning's on today, and you may know Rich and Hillary. Her husband was four-time fittest man on earth from 2011 and 2014 for CrossFit, and I hope I have all my information correct introducing him. He is very well known in the sports world, and every time my husband and I travel places on vacation and we go to a gym, or even if you just see someone at a restaurant and they say, "Where are you from?" We're from such a small town in Livingston, no one's ever heard of that. So we usually say Cookeville, the next largest town, and we'll be like, "Have you ever heard of Cookeville, Tennessee?" And they'll say, "Do you know Rich? Do you know Rich?" And we always say, "We do, but do you know his wife?" I say that all the time. I'm like, "You've got to know Hillary. She is the sweetest, down-to-earth, truly," I said a minute ago, we are good friends in daylight and dark.
Very much so.
I don't own a pet in my house. We didn't even keep a fish alive in our house. And Hillary will sleep in the barn with her animals if they need something that night. She and I would be talking about the birthday gifts we'd want, and mine might be a designer handbag, and hers is a
knockoff off Amazon.
No, hers is a Highland cow.
Highland cow, yeah.
That's what she wanted the last time we were talking about it. There was a Highland cow she really wanted for her birthday. And I'm like, "Hillary, he'll get you that purse. You know, the one purse she likes. And I'd rather have this cow." Like, I love it. She is who she is, and she's the sweetest girl and would do anything for anybody, especially some children. She has always had this love for kids. It just shines through her. We were just talking earlier before the podcast about a missionary trip she was just on. And her and her husband, a lot of people follow their lifestyle, and then they're famous. And I think that people need to see the complete real side of them. We've traveled with them. Hillary and I have traveled together by ourselves multiple times, but we've also traveled with their husbands, and people are goo-goo about her husband. And it's not local because people here all know him. It's when you travel the world. We were literally going through the Florida Keys, and they were all like, "Richard, we were in a rental car, were we not?"
Fitters are adamant. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, I was like, "What? Those people are like fixing to hit our window. Who is this?" And they're going, Richard. And they recognize Rich in the passenger seat of our vehicle. And y'all, he makes everyone feel like they're the cool person when they come up to talk to him. He has got such a gift of that, Hillary.
He handles that so well.
I mean, he does it. They don't annoy him. Instead, he's like, "Tell me about you." I absolutely love that. If you ever get to know him on the inside, like if you know him just in his day-to-day life, you're going to like him even more than you do as someone you look up to in the CrossFit world. But what I wanted Hillary to share with you guys today, I want you to get to know her. She's just such a fun girl. Such a fun girl. I need her sister on here too so we can just all chat one day just for fun.
Yeah, she's my better half for sure.
Listen, you don't talk bad about the other sister. They are besties.
We can, you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they might get mad at each other.
But yeah, it never lasts long. Yeah, we're super close.
Yeah, they are, and it's such a gift. But Hillary has a book out, and it's Blessed by Adoption, and she has a really unique story of how I told you her love for children, and she wanted to start a family. So, will you tell us a little bit about how, like, when you and Rich got married and how long you were married before you started trying to have children? And tell us a little bit about you trying to start your family and have children.
He is from a very large family. He has, I think 32 or 34 first cousins, and like 26 are all boys. Like, he for sure wanted a big family. I obviously just have one sister, 6 cousins, like nothing crazy. We both, when we first started dating, we knew we wanted kids. A big, family was what our goal was. And then and we really, really wanted that, like, surprise, like not trying, just like what everybody else gets. It's so easy. And that just wasn't happening. And then it was like, okay, well, and then if one more person said, "Oh, it's CrossFit," or "Oh, it's stress." Oh, okay, thank you.
People love to give you their opinion on it.
Everybody will give you their opinion. And you just don't. That's not what you want to hear. So we started seeing fertility doctors, and that was a really hard journey. Just the infertility road, like, it's very thorough. Lots of appointments, lots of I had tons of procedures, lots of shots, lots of medicine.
Which messes with it's so mentally exhausting, right?
It's a lot, yeah. And then, of course, you gain weight with it. You're tired. You're angry. Like, it's just...
Tough on a marriage and everything,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. And then it just became more difficult and more difficult. And so after like 2 or 3 years, we decided that we would try... IUI or IVF was the next option. And so IVF is very expensive. It's not covered through, I don't know if it is now, but not through insurance. And I'd always wanted to adopt. It's so crazy. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have friends. But I'd always just had it on my heart. That's what I wanted to do. And so, of course, our plan was to have 3 or 4 and then adopt after. And after we did IUI 3 times. And when it didn't work, I was like, I'm done. I can't. Like, we've done this long enough. I can't do it. And it was a really hard, like, conversation of like, listen, I'm not going to be mad. Like, this just isn't going to work.
And it's kind of like, when do you ever feel like, I'm sure, am I giving up on my family? Like, if you don't know if you should or not, stop.
And when you just reach the point of like, gosh, we've tried everything. And that was also really difficult is we still don't have an answer. Like, my blood work, surprisingly, is better than Rich's, and his stuff is still great. And so we never had like a diagnosis, like, we have unexplained infertility, which I don't even know what that means.
Right.
You know what I mean? But after going...
But God knew. He knew the whole big picture.
And I tell everybody that. I'm like, you know, I was so angry. And then finally now I'm like, I don't have biological children because these are supposed to be mine.
I mean, look at this.
They're so cute.
Don't you wish, though, that you could have told Hillary then, this is going to be your family one day?
I think, though, it's made me such a better mom. Like, my kids, they're so they get away with so much because I'm just like, I am so proud of them and love them so much. Like, when you fight, I'm not saying that people who have children as a surprise are not good parents, but like when you fight for them and pray for them for so long, it's like they're my whole world. But like, yeah, they
are little angels.
They can be. One more than
I'm picturing Josh right now just riding straight into the vehicles.
He's so embarrassing. I never.
Our sons are so much alike, y'all. They're both 90 to nothing, and that's what keeps us. You know, when I describe John Crew, though, I just describe him as my gift, and he is. That is truly how it is. And all these kids are your gift.
Yeah.
I try to remind, everyone has their story, and I hate so bad for people that infertility, and mine's a little different than yours. Because we would get pregnant very easy, but we miscarried. And then I had a heart condition that was causing me a lot of issues. But everybody's story is different and unique. And a lot of times young girls get pregnant when they feel like they're in high school or they're alone and they begrudge the pregnancy. And I also like to remind them in the moment, there's that big picture out there, just like I just said about the front of your magazine. So if you're listening to this, girls, and you had a child when you wasn't necessarily wanting one, there was a reason for that God does not make mistakes. He had to breathe life into that child. And so there's a reason for it. And just know that even though it didn't happen the way you wanted, where Hillary and I didn't get to have children when we wanted, there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it happening at that point in your life. Yes. I know for LG and I, we got married young, 20 and 22, went away to school, had nothing but debt. Come back, built our practice, and the whole time we were married, all I wanted was a family. I just daydreamed of being a mama. I daydream of the life I live right now. I say that all the time.
It consumes your life.
It does. You just think of it.
It's hard.
And I did. I wanted kids. And he would say, "We can't have kids. I got to get through I got to get through medical school. I got to get through this." And we come back and we built the office. And he said, "I got to know that I can pay the electric bill. We weren't even paying ourselves, but if we could pay the bills and live there." Literally living in the dental office, and we got it, then we'll see. And so that first time he told me, okay, we can try, I remember being so excited, y'all, and we got pregnant and we miscarried. And he blamed himself so much for that miscarriage because he had delayed me. And then we had other miscarriages along the way that were pretty far along, and DNCs and the whole 9 yards. But I say all the time, and Hillary and I are going to get more of the details of this, but I've had deliveries and C-sections and DNCs and miscarriages and adoption. And I've also been a part of another child being adopted and through the process. And I'm telling you what, there is no different. I've had it all. There is absolutely no different. And there's nothing wrong with wondering if there is a difference, But I remember when I had 2 children just saying all the time to people, I just don't know, would there be a difference? Is there a difference in the way you love them? Is there a difference in the bond? Does blood mean something? There is none.
Yeah.
There absolutely is none. And my older 2 kids would probably tell you that they think that we favor John Crew, the one that we adopted. There is absolutely no difference, and it's love. And I got people, the best way to explain it is I have a handful of friends that I could take their children tomorrow and raise them. Yeah. If something happened to them, I would love them just like mine. That is the best way to describe how that an adoption works. It is a natural bond, and we both were really lucky in the ways that kind of worked with us and God worked with it. We had some really hard times to get there.
Yeah.
But that bond immediately is there, is it not?
It's crazy.
Yeah. I've said so many times, it's unbelievable.
But I also really loved my kids' birth moms too. So that was another great, which is not the same for everybody, but I think they are just hands down the strongest people that
100%
babies, and they're just, I can't talk good enough about.
I say they love them more than I do to have been able to give them to someone else for a better life.
Yeah.
And I'll get into all that later in my story. I want to share all about Hillary's, but that is the reason that we adopted was because of a mother story. And so I'm the same way. But y'all's story is so unique. So you went through all of this trying to get pregnant, which I might add was in the middle of you guys also being right in the front of a public image. It was probably in the height of his career, was it not?
Yeah, very much so. We actually, our oldest was born. You can't fly with them until they're 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. She was 2 weeks and a day old enough to fly to go to the CrossFit Games, and that was his last year as an individual. So, and all of my kids have been born at a height competition. It's never just been
That's what did it for him. That's what pushed him through it.
Oh, you could say that. Yeah, we had 3 failed adoptions in between our oldest 2, and with my son, we had been with an agency for years, and nothing had happened with it. And I remember storming into Mayhem and being like, "You're signing all these papers. We're doing it. I'm going to send this application in." And he was like, "We're not." He's like, "We're going to be thankful for Lakeland. The last 3 have just been too much. I'm not singing." And I just remember being like, "Either you're going to sign it or I'm going to forge your signature, and I'm mailing it today." And he goes, "Okay." He's like, "We'll sign." He's like, "I'll sign it." He's like, "But then this is going to be it." And the Trice's story too is just, they're all so different and so amazing, and so God moves so many mountains in so many ways to make it happen that it's just, how could you deny that they're not supposed to be yours?
100%. I know, 100%. It works the way it was supposed to. Let's talk about that. So let's start off with Lakeland. So you tell us how you got Lakeland. So you've tried for years now and different processes and could not get pregnant naturally. At this point, had you already signed up with an agency before Lakeland? Okay.
No. I didn't know how far along that she was. Mm-hmm. And she had been working with a family the whole time who backed out. Mm-hmm. And when we met, she was supposed to meet DCS the next day, because she just was too overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And then when I met her, I realized very quickly that she was way further than what I knew. Mm-hmm. And our attorney, still, even if it's a private adoption, you still have to have it. Study. You have to have, all the things. And our attorney she was so amazing, and she was like, "There's just no way." She was like, "Hillary, you don't need to get your hopes up. You can't." Called the home study agency in Nashville. She laughed in my face also. It was like, "There's just no way."
Because we're talking such a short time period. And those of you who don't know, it is, the home study is
a lot.
You're signing your life away. And I'm not talking about financially. I'm talking about septic tank checks. I mean, there is nothing they don't check and look back up.
All bank stuff, my dad's death certificate, our dog shot records.
It's insane. It really, I had no idea.
I didn't even know where it was.
Listen, that's when I went on anxiety medicine.
Yeah,
I went on anxiety medicine through a home study for adoption.
I didn't have time.
It was insane. Okay, go ahead.
So I said, can you just give it to me and let me try? Like, just don't tell me no now. Like, and this is when I was working in a dental office. So I would get home and then just work on it all night and then get up, go to work, come back.
And
work on it.
It's hours. It's a book.
And the problem is, like I said, I don't know where to even find some of the stuff that I had to have. So it was like calling our attorney, calling our family attorney, calling the banks, and just running around. But I just knew in my heart that, like, paperwork is not going to stop me from this happening. And so, and they couldn't believe it either. And it was great. Apparently there was a family in Knoxville that had an emergency case. So the lady in Nashville was like, this is so weird. I'm actually coming through in 2 days. Is there any way? And I was like,
I'll stay up around it. I know you.
Closed twice, because you got to cover your light, like light stuff.
Yes, it's insane. Prove that you've got a room for everyone. Although
we didn't have to do that.
Okay.
And that was really hard for me. One of our situations didn't work, and I fell off the rocker, full of hormones, crying, and everything I had saved that was my niece's or that we'd bought on trips, threw it all away. I just gave it all away. So I didn't have a crib. I had no clothes. I had nothing. And our home study lady was so amazing. Like, I told her, I said, oh, we don't have anything. She looked, and I'm crying, and I was like, I can't look at it if this doesn't work. And I was like, I promise you that I have friends and family. I will figure it out. I am not worried. And that is what happened. Like, when we had Lakeland, I have some Carters passed down holy onesies from Sarah Patterson was our neighbor at the time. I wouldn't take $200 for those passed down onesies, and that's all we had for like 2 months. And at the time, we got to bring her home. We were in the room with her when she was born. Rich actually got to cut the cord. It was so great. At the time, it was 2 weeks that the birth mom can change their mind. Weekends don't count. So, like, no, nobody knew.
And that was in the state of Tennessee, for those of you listening. So that's different state to state.
And I don't think that's how it is. I don't think that's still the law now. But, like, you want to talk about the longest 2 weeks of your life. And anytime my phone would ring, like, terrified. And there's nothing you can do. You just have to take her back. But it was so great. And the hospital was so wonderful.
Did you get to name her and everything?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So Violet, our youngest, it has the same birth mom, and she did name her first name and asked if we would keep it. And then again, it's such a God thing because that was one of our baby names when we first got married.
That's so cool.
Harper. So it was like one of those like.
That's so cool. Yeah.
That
it works out like that.
Yeah. Very crazy. Very crazy. And then it was finalized when we flew to the games for his last year to compete. Which was also really sweet because, like, I wanted that moment so bad every game, it never happened. And then it was like, oh, well, here she is, so it was just great.
So tell me about that. So you're in front of the public the whole time through all this. And so you can't share because this is a child that's very private and you could lose this child.
I wasn't legally allowed to show her. Nobody could see her.
So at the games, were you legally allowed to?
No, not till the second day. Not till the second day. So actually his cousin Darren, we had to have them carry her through the airport because we were so afraid
people would get images.
See her. Like we just didn't know, and we didn't want to get, you're so afraid of breaking the rules or the law.
Well, I know from someone that wasn't famous or isn't famous. So I can't imagine on your end how there's just so many barriers you have to cross.
And just in general, traveling with a 2-week-old, it was just, and it sounds so terrible. You're so proud of your husband. You're so wanting to enjoy this last time of being an individual. And then at the same time, it's like, we literally just had a baby 2 weeks ago. Like everything's changing as soon as this is done. So it was great. And we had so much help. Like we had so many good friends and Mayhem members, and everybody just really jumped in and loved on us and helped. And
because y'all are that type of people, you love on everybody else. If there's any catastrophe, like if you don't know them, like our town, there's so much they've done. There's so much they've done for so many people no one will ever know about, and that's their personality. They're not about showing that. But like we've had horrible tornadoes hit before here, and they just stop their life. When they know there's something they can do for someone else, they stop their life and they do it. Because you take every bit of that influence and that opportunity y'all have and you use it for the good. And that's taught me so much. I mean, it really, it's really cool.
Well, like Cookeville is a very sweet town, and there's so many good people here. Like, we just, if there's a way that we could help her do anything, like we try to do that.
And y'all have. And so there's no wonder everybody was doing the same for y'all.
Well, I mean, we were just flying by the seat of our pants there for a few months, but yeah, it was great.
So Lakeland is how old when, tell us about like the phone call or how it came to about your second child, Violet.
No, my second Trice.
Second Trice.
Second Trice is in the middle, and that's the one that I say. Like,
they're the same age for those of you who are wondering why I got that confused.
They're 2 months apart. Yeah, they basically are the exact same. So we had been with that agency for a long time, and that was the one that I told Rich, like, you're going to sign this or I'm going to. And he was born in Florida, which is totally different laws than Tennessee.
I love his story.
Listen. I mean, for with Trice, it's one of those, like, you just can't argue that he belongs to us. And he, there was like 36 or 37 applicants for him. And we got the email that said we were like top 5. And we had a birthday party at our house that night, and Rich just he was very adamant not to get excited because the last 3.
He was worried about you.
Yeah. Well, the one that fell through before Trice was really, really hard. Like, papers were signed on the way to the hospital, car seat in the car, and changed their mind. And there's nothing, I mean, that is what it is. It's devastating. And he was like, you can't do that again. And so with Trice, he was very, very hesitant. And we got the phone call later that night that we were top 3, which they don't know who you are, though. Like, you send the letters and the pictures in. They're very specific on what you say, very specific on what you don't say. Never know your last name. And I like that. Like, everybody's like, isn't that strange? And I was like, honestly. And what's even better, the birth mom she wanted somebody in Florida. We didn't live in Florida. She wanted somebody with no kids. We had a kid. She was in her mid-30s. She wanted somebody a little bit older than what we were. We were everything that she wasn't wanting, and that's also exactly how I started. I sat at my counter and just cried and heard this letter of, like, I'm not what you're looking for. I am nothing that you've, asked about. And she picked us. And so we got the call. They're like, how fast can you get here? Obviously, packed the car, left the next day, went to the wrong hospital. That was great. And the guy was like, what do you mean? So I'm hysterical. I'm like, they think that we're not responsible and can't do directions. Like, whatever. Get to Jacksonville. And the NICU nurses they're truly.
They're saints.
But this nurse, I'll never forget it. She stopped us as soon as we got there. We hadn't seen him or anything. And she said, no. Do you know about him? And me and Rich just kind of looked at each other and we're like, they told us nothing. Like, the agency, the attorney didn't tell us anything about him. I mean, we knew how much he weighed and other, like, that kind of stuff. But he apparently we were told he had severe cerebral palsy and would never walk. And if he did walk, he'd have braces on his legs. Well, we later found out that she had actually picked another parent or another adoptive parents, and they flew in, saw him, and left.
Heard the same story, I'm sure.
Well, his legs, when you would take him out of the blanket, would just fall to the side. Like, they were he had no
muscle movement
at all in his legs. And so they left. And of course, I'm like, my uncle had cerebral palsy. I grew up, like, that did not scare, like, that is the least of my worries.
I told you, just her animals, she'll sleep in the barn, so.
Well, so I was like, nope, that's great, whatever. And then after we saw him, I'm like, it just, same. Like, it was just such an amazing, like, where has he been my whole life? Like, it's just, and he drives me absolutely up the wall. But
and did Rich not name him after him, like, that first day?
So we had another name picked out for him, like, from actually one of the ones that had fallen through. So we had all these monogrammed outfits, and we really prayed about it on the way. And then when we got there, we saw him, and Rich goes, I don't think I want to name him that. And of course, I'm like,
I've got this monogram.
What do you say now? Yeah. And he said, I'd really like for him to have my name. Well, of course, then I'm like, and I also was very, I knew that he was probably going to be our last. And so how do you tell your husband, no, you're not going to name him after him? And we already, we have a Trey cousin, we have, so I was like, Rich is already a junior, so that's confusing enough. So I was like, okay, well, so I started looking up. So his name's Trice, but he's technically he's a third.
Right.
Rich wanted to call him Rocky, which also means third. And I
didn't know that means third. I can't believe Rich didn't.
He tried really hard. I was like,
or Armageddon, or
please. I was like, that's not happening. But he, same. I don't even remember now. It was like a regional or sectional or something the same week. So we drove together to Florida, and he left the next morning. We got there that night. He left the next morning. And then since he was in the NICU, I was there for, 3 weeks, I think. And of course, then I had Lakeland at home.
I started to say, did you get to see Lakeland at all during that time?
And then...
And that was before FaceTime, too.
It was so, and then same though, then he gets to leave, and I'm in a hotel with this newborn, and people are mean to you when you've got a newborn walking around a hotel, or you fly with them, if you see somebody on a plane or with a newborn,
help them.
Nice. Just be nice.
I know.
You don't know what they're doing or where they're going or how they got there.
The story, I know.
So that was difficult. My sister ended up coming because I was falling off. I was losing my mind. And he sent my sister, and she was there with me towards the end of it.
So your grandma, not your mom, the grandmas, your mother and mother-in-law take care of Lakeland while you were going?
Yeah, because then he was going to compete, and then we brought him home. And then the state had to come, evaluate him for however many months to make sure he was on track. And then finally they were just like, I think he might actually be just fine. I think he was just small. And we're like... it's so amazing. And now he doesn't walk, he just runs.
I started to say it was definitely a misdiagnosis.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yes. So, yeah, very crazy.
And so then...
10 months later, I will never forget it. I was washing the dishes, and I see the Lakeland's birth mom call. And we talk birthdays, Christmas, but definitely... she ever did anything, she knows that she could call. And I answer, and she's crying. So then I start crying. And she told me that she had Violet. And she was also living in Florida. We had just done that in Florida, and I was terrified. And I get off the phone, and
So she had already given birth?
She did. Mm-hmm.
And you never even knew she had been pregnant?
Nope. But she planned on keeping her.
Okay.
And, she actually went to have an abortion with Lakeland. It was too far. And then with Violet, she said that she went, and she said, Hillary, all I could see was Lakeland's face. And she said, I just couldn't do it. And she also has other children.
Okay.
And which is also really crazy and great. She has older children, and they've reached out to me too. And just the love that you have for somebody else's children that are so kind and so sweet and love your children,
their family.
It's, yeah. And they're so respectful and so, we've heard horror stories, and I can't relate to them because we haven't had anything like that. And like I say, I get my claws come out when people talk about birth moms because to love your child as much as they do, to make those decisions for them, you can't relate it to any, I can't even say enough about
That's what I say. That's what I say about John Cruz. We call her his tummy mama that did that carried him for us.
And people ask us about that too. If we tell our kids, we do, because that's their story, and they're gonna know. They're gonna find out one day. But my sister and our best friend Kelly Billings, they were pregnant at the same time. So my kids knew I never had a belly, and then there they were. So they knew that was different. But the second that you make it different and you make it difficult or strange, that's when my kids love their stories. Like, they want to hear about it all the time.
It's the coolest. Yeah.
It's great.
So we just went through this. My story's a little different than yours because we had already given birth to 2 children. And my husband always wanted to adopt. We've been together since I was in 8th grade. He wrote a paper about it in high school. The students were asked in high school to write their paper about what they think you can do to make the biggest impact in this world. And his paper he wrote on, he was about the age that our son Green now is when he wrote it. And he thinks the single best thing you can do in this world is save a child and bring it to Christ. And he thinks that through adoption to save a child is the best thing you can do. He told me this the whole time we were dating, and he wanted to adopt. And I had, my father actually was adopted, and different family members. We had some cousins that were adopted that my husband really looked up to. And so he was like, people would say, even when we got married, we were married 7 years before we had our first child, and they would say to us, how many children y'all want? Or, when are you going to have, when are you going to have kids? You know how that's just a question you get. And it didn't matter when it doesn't stop, girls. So once you have the first one, it's when you're going to have another one. It's just the next line of questions. But they would ask us, and he would say, well, we're going to have a few and we're going to adopt. And I would just look at him because I told him I never had that desire to adopt. Mm-hmm. That was not in me like it was him. I wanted to be pregnant and feel it, and I wanted, what girl doesn't think they want that, you know?
Right. And
so I was like, that wasn't naturally in me. So we had the most providence of God story where we were working our tails off, as I like to say, in the dental office, and my husband was seeing patients, and I was seeing patients full time as a hygienist then, and we were actually remodeling our house we live in now, and we'd ran and done that on a lunch break, and I rushed back to the office, and LG didn't even get to leave for lunch, and I go into his personal office, and he's sitting at the desk, and he has tears coming down his eyes, and I'm like, what is wrong? I think, he's looking at his phone, I'm like, something has happened, and he said, shut the door, and I shut the door to his office, and he said, his sister had called him, and at the time she was working at Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the University of Alabama, and she had called him and said she had a young girl that she had put in the vehicle, and they were on their way to get a free ultrasound. The girl was pregnant and was scheduled for an abortion the next day, and she had just talked her into at least getting the ultrasound. And so my husband did not know. LG did not know that he was on speakerphone. And he was in the middle of a stressful day at work and just, wrapped up in our life like we are when you get an unexpected call anyways. Right. And he said, you tell her absolutely not, in a fairly hateful voice, I'm sure. He just said, you tell her there's people who would love to have that child. And if they don't, then I do. And the girl said, oh, yeah. Well, would they want it if they know I'm African American and the dad is Latino? And LG had a assistant at the time who had tried for 13 years to get pregnant and never been able to. And he said, I'm sure they would love to, but if they don't, we will. Mm-hmm. Mind you, I hadn't been in there. So he's telling me the story with the door shut in his office. Yeah. And I said, we will? Anna Berkeley was a baby. Yeah, she was a baby, and we're remodeling a house, and he said, yes, we will. And so she takes her on for the ultrasound, and he calls his assistant and says, you need to call into his office. And he says, you need to call your husband right now and see if there's something you're interested in, because we need to know. Mm-hmm. And he called her husband. I'll never forget that. She called him, and she said, this is what's just happened. Tells him, and he said, they'd went through what you had. They'd went through all the process, and they had been told, though, you will not be able to have children. They knew for a fact. And he had done all these tours in the military and done so much sacrifice for our country. Mm-hmm. And this was going to be their only chance of a grandchild on either side, too. And he said, I don't care. He's like us. There's no racist bone in his body. He said, I don't care if the baby's green. Yes.
Right.
We want them. There's no question to it, And so through a turn of events, we loaded up the vehicle that weekend, and assistant and her husband, which are friends of ours, and my husband and I, we loaded up. We went to Alabama, and we met halfway, and we picked up this girl we'd never met in our life. We put her in the vehicle. That poor thing. She's, of course, we were so happy to see her and love on her, but she gets in the vehicle with 4 complete strangers, hormones and everything, and she's still trying to decide if she's going to have an abortion or not. She's very early in the pregnancy, and she had encouragement from family to have an abortion. And so all we wanted to do was just let her know she had options.
Yeah.
that was her decision to make. You know, we weren't trying to make that for her. We just wanted to let her know she had options. So we just wanted her to meet us, meet them. We were offering our home, LG and I were saying, you can live with us. We will feed you. We will give you a place to live. We never gave her $1 financially. We just provided for her just like we would any family member. And that was what we offered her. And they said they would love to adopt the baby if she chose to keep it. And so we sent her back with all the prenatal vitamins, everything that she would need, and our telephone numbers. We didn't know if we'd ever see her again or if we'd ever know about the story. And we were invested, not financially. Our hearts were completely invested. We watched for that phone call because we were just hoping that she had not aborted this child we were already so invested in. And for their sake, you know, because they were so excited. And she called on Mother's Day to tell them that she was keeping the baby, she did not abort it, and that they could adopt him. And then on Father's Day weekend, we went back and picked her up, and she stayed with us till the baby was born. And so this whole time, guys, I think I have it figured out. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. You have answered his wish. He has saved a child. This is a great Christian home that's going to raise this baby. And, you know, I'm like, I have it figured out. Yeah. The Lord and I have got this taken care of. And so I fall in love with the birth mom. She lives with us. We help her get her first job and enough money saved up to get a vehicle. She'd never had a vehicle, and she was 26. And so we help her get her feet on the ground. I think I'm telling you right. It's been years ago. I can't remember if she was 23 or 26. She was, you know, she'd been out of school for some time, out of high school. And so we were just helping her more than anything to know her worth. That's what she didn't know. She had never had someone to tell her the girl was simply beautiful. Mm-hmm. She was so beautiful, but she never had someone to tell her that. Yeah. And how much possibilities she had. She became a Christian while she lived with us. Mm-hmm. You know, she had dinner with us every night. She became a big part of our life. She went to Monday night dinners with us with my grandparents. They started fixing her favorite foods for her and having orange slice candy for her because she liked it. And, you know, she became family. Yeah. And so the big time, too, for these birth moms that people like to forget about is after. You know, there's a really happy mom that was you and I on the other end who gets on the receiving end and they get to hold that baby. But there's the days after. Yeah. And so we brought this girl home to live with us and get her feet on the ground. And, I mean, her milk comes in days later and I'm cabbaging her breast, cabbage leaves. You know, she's in so much pain. And there's just, you go a different level you don't even know you had in those moments. And my love changed completely in this whole process. I remember the day that she gave birth and she delivered the baby and I helped with the transition. She kissed the baby and wished it a better life and handed it to the birth parents. And I was standing there for all of it. And I walked out into the hall where the grandparents were standing here at Cookville Hospital, and I looked at my husband and I said, I want to adopt. Mm-hmm. And he like literally took the breath out of him and he went, I wondered how long it was going to take you. And I just knew God and I had it figured out the whole time. Yeah. I was never adopting. Plan. Yeah. No, I was never doing it. Yeah. And so that's when we started. And ours didn't go so well like that. We went through, you know, adoption agencies and prayed. And we paid for adoption 1.5 years before we ever got him. Our time was about up, you know. And I was taking it personal. I'm like, you practically sell yourself to them. Like you said, they have limited information, but you show a picture of your house and you promise them they'll have a good education and you'll take them on family vacations. And you literally try to advertise for yourself this life.
Every year that you don't get picked, you have to pay another. And
oh, yeah.
Like we were just waiting.
And you're like, what's happened? I remember we were, our house, like I told you, we'd been remodeling and didn't have a stitch of landscaping around it. And we'd saved up for landscaping. And it was time to order it. And I remember calling the guy that was going to put in the landscaping and tell him we're not getting all that. Yeah. It's going on the adoption, you know? Yeah. And so, best decision we ever made. And so again, it was a providence of God's story the way we got our son, but he wasn't even conceived at the time that we had went through all the paperwork to do everything. And he just we've never kept it a secret either. We're all about it. I've always talked about it. You and I've done a YouTube video on it years ago. It's always been a part of our story, and I've always included it in my lifestyle page. But he didn't realize what it was. Mm-hmm. And my son's 8.5 now. And I had that feeling for the last 6 months. It's really been on my heart. And I've been saying to my husband, I think we need to sit down and talk to him. He is such a smart kid, so smart. Yeah. And he hadn't been asking questions. And I knew anything else. He asked so many detailed questions. Yeah. And he has not asked anything about this. And I'm like, I just feel like this is something we need to make sure he understands.
Right.
And it worked the way it needed to. He was playing with his cousins at my parents' house recently, and his little cousin said, well, you know you're adopted. And he said, I am not. And she said, yes, you are. You're adopted. And he stormed down the steps from the toy room, and he went to my parents, and he said, Mimi, tell her I am not adopted. She keeps telling me I'm adopted.
Yeah.
He didn't know what that was. He thought it was supposed to be something different, you know? Yeah. And she said, well, let's talk about that. And so she said, you're mom and daddy's, and you've always been. But there was a lady who carried you in her belly for your mama. And he sat there for a minute and pondered on it. And then it was every day now we have a new question about it, you know. And
my girls ask a lot of questions. But it's sweet. They'll ask what, you know, like, well, I have blue eyes like my cousin does, and I look like her, and I do, you know, like she'll just ask random, just, you know.
So do they know of they ever met their birth mom, or know of their other relatives through that?
No, but I've told them. They're very, very, very sweet, like I said, and respectful, and reached out to me very early on, and I'm not against them meeting them, because I mean, again, why would I push anybody away that loves my children? I just want them to be a little bit older to where it's not too confusing, confusing or hard for them, you know. But no, I'm excited for them to meet one day. Like everybody handles it so different. Like I think that's another thing that you just didn't talk about adoption though. You know, like a few years ago, it was like, you don't speak of that. You don't. And I'm like, why are you making it so? It's amazing. It's not a bad thing. It's not. People become parents in every single, like, multiple.
That's exactly right.
It's okay.
You know, and that's one thing, like you said, people didn't talk about it. People didn't talk about mental health. People didn't talk about anxiety. People talk about, that is one thing that social media and podcasting has been really good about. It's not just controlled media that tells us what we're going to hear. People can spread word about things to make other people know that what they're going through is completely normal. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. This is just a normal thing that you're dealing with. Yeah. We kind of dealt with the little thing. And John Crew just said he felt different. He said, I just feel different. And we said, now I feel different now that I know I'm adopted. We said, that's completely normal to feel different. We all feel different in different ways. But you could not be loved more, son.
Right.
I mean, we wanted you so bad. And the way I see it, you're extra special because it took God orchestrating every bit of this for us to have you. And the whole time we prayed for John Crew Puckett.
Yeah.
You're named after your grandfathers on one side and your brother's named after the grandfathers on the other. And we just knew we were waiting on you. And the minute you came out, the Lord did work it all out where we could be there, and LG cut the cord, like you said, and it was just such a blessing. And the lady, it was she has a different situation, and she wanted a closed adoption, but to this day, I tell her what a blessing she's been to us, and she says the same thing. Like she lives somewhere else, and it's a closed adoption, but she will randomly send me a text message every 2 to 3 years, and she just says, still the best decision I've ever made in my life. I gave him the life. I have a very public life, and she follows. Yeah. And she knows, you know, and so she can see anything she wants going on in our life, and she gets to watch John Crew grow up.
And I love that.
I do too. And she said, I all the time think he has the life I wish I had growing up. And that just means the world to me, you know? And I tell her, I'm like, you don't know what you gave us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, we just love and adore him, and I promised you I'd always take care of him, and I will.
And that's what I think, too. Like, just it's so hard to explain to somebody who hasn't been there, but, like, the relationship that I have with, especially my girl's birth mom, so the doctors and the attorney had told us that we probably shouldn't be in the room, and that is their job. That is the job also to protect you too. And she had asked to hold her first, and that wasn't what we had planned. You know, like we had all this big plan, me and her, and so I told the attorney, I was like, I just don't know. And then I went to her last hour's appointment, and she said, I'm sure they've told you that I want to hold her first. And I'm like, they did. Like, that's, and she started crying. And she said, Hillary, I want to hand her to you, not a doctor. And I just remember telling Rich, like, I'm so scared. And so we'd never done this before. So excited. And then just truly a stranger. I'm trusting a stranger to tell me the truth and bless me with something that I can never repay anybody. And it was the sweetest moment of my whole life that fear almost took over again, you know, and it just, and I know not everybody has the same situations, but like same, like she was a little bit smaller. I don't remember, something that happened. We had to stay a few extra days, and the birth mom slept in our room with me and my sister. I mean, we were just,
That sounds like us. I got so close to the birth mom. I tell people, I'm like, they said, how was it? And I said, listen, the nurses told us they had to get me signed out of there, or I was going to take both of them.
Yeah.
I would have.
Yeah.
And then it's the same situation. This girl had never been told her worth. And she had so much promise for her. And she knew she had no desire to still be a mother. You know, she said, the whole time she was carrying, his story is just such a unique story. She found out she was pregnant. It was a one-night deal, and she didn't even know who the birth father, and so she waited by the bus multiple days to try finding the gentleman to tell him when she found out she was pregnant. And she told him, and he was not interested in being, you know, having a child. And she said that she knew she could not. She said, I knew I could not raise this child myself, but I was not going to abort it. And so she had went to the doctor multiple times and everything, and they kept telling her that the baby had a certain disorder that would not, trisomy that would not make it after delivery. So she thought the whole time, I'm going to deliver this child, and he's not going to be able to survive. And she found out at 7.5 months pregnant that she was having a perfectly healthy baby boy. And so she said she looked down in her stomach at the doctor's appointment, and she was like, well, I'm glad what I've been feeling is going to make it, but what am I going to do? Like, I can't do this alone. And so she didn't even have a vehicle. I mean, and this is in Arizona, so she was taking in over 100-degree weather. She went to the doctor's appointments all the time. Now, that's love.
Yeah.
It would have been much easier for her to abort a child.
Yeah.
And she was told the whole time that the baby wasn't going to survive, and she still said, no, I'm going to let fate tell me.
Yeah.
You know? And so she continued to proceed on with this, and that's what I just thanked her for. And then when he was born, of course, he was perfectly healthy, and she was so excited to see us, so excited.
Oh.
And so she wasn't trying to, she'd come in the room and I'd just be loving all over him, changing his clothes multiple times, as you can imagine. And I just absolutely just adored the moment. And she just loved hanging out with us. LG'd go get us all dinner together, and same thing. I would have just brought her home with me too.
She, you know, here you are in this like life-changing, incredible moment trying to just soak it all in. She got me a gift. Oh. And they got my daughter, like, it was just one of those, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm supposed to be, like, thanking you for my whole entire life. And she's living on me. Like, it was just, and every time I talk about the birth moms, like, people will be like, I'm like, I don't expect you to get it.
No.
I'm sad that you don't understand, because it is so great. Like, it's just.
But the loyalty's there. Always. You're, like you said, I'll fight for it like them. Don't talk bad about them in front of me. That's exactly right. No. That's exactly right. They chose life, and they gave me the biggest blessing ever. Yeah. And that's why I'm very, very, what's the word I want to use for it? I'm very tender-hearted towards young girls getting pregnant. At a young age and not having support, and birth moms not having support throughout the whole process. It tugs at my heart so much. So many times I've heard moms say that they tell their child or their daughter, if you do it, I will not be helping you. I will not be doing this. We will not be having a baby shower. I will do it.
Yeah.
If they ever needed me, they need us in that moment more than ever. Oh, yeah. They're already having decisions made for them that they, it wasn't planned, and but the last thing they need is to be crucified. Yeah. There's a child at stake here, and we need to support them, and we need to help. I just think that's our duty as Christians in general.
And same with birth moms that choose adoption. Don't talk bad about them. They are not giving up. That is not what's going on.
No.
They love that child so much that they're choosing a life that they can't provide. And I think that's been really difficult for me too, is like the view on it. Like, people want to say that they support it and they're for it, But then when they're caught in a situation or know someone, what they say is not very kind, you know? And then like when we first had Lakeland, it was very apparent. Yeah, I wasn't pregnant for 9 months, and then here she is. Like, so I was amazed at the things that were being said to me about her. And I remember being at church, actually, and carrying her around the car seat, you know, all proud of her. And this lady came up and she said, "Oh, she's one of those drug babies, isn't she?" And I mean, came unglued. I cry when I'm real upset, like mad. And I felt Rich like grab my arm. And I was like, listen, I can yell at her in here or I can yell at her in the parking lot. It doesn't matter. But like, it was the first time that I really realized that she was being labeled for no reason anyways. And it broke my heart. Like she wasn't a drug baby. I mean, I would tell the truth. She wasn't. But guess what? Even if she
It didn't matter.
And who are you to sit here and be like, oh, I was so mad and so hurt. And I'm just like, you're the problem with what people say and feel about this and make it hard for everybody.
You're exactly right. And like, again, I was saying, we got to support the mom, the birth mom. We got to support young pregnant girls, whether they're keeping their child, they're going to try doing it themselves or they're going to give it a better life. They need our help. They need us. And I also feel like people see if they can find hope. I know in my lifestyle page, and I've shared about our adoption process, I mean, dozens of people have reached out to me and they're like, we've not been able to have children, and it seems like you guys, it worked for y'all. Like the adoption worked, and I'm like, I 100% do it. I understand you're scared. 100%. If you're listening to this, if your heart is tugging, go for it.
Do it.
There's a reason it is pulling.
On there.
It is the best. Even if you get a heartbreak along the way, is it not worth it?
Yeah.
And we can say that because we're on the other side. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's okay.
We're on the other side of it. Go for it. Go for it. Go for it. I can't tell you enough times over what a blessing. As I'm looking at your book that's blessed by adoption, it is such a blessing. God's going to get you through it. He's going to walk you through it. But I also think that it is something that is a domino effect. And I think that when other people see life in you and the difference, then they're more open to do it. And that is also such a good thing about it. Our church, I mean, I attend a small church. It's about 160 people on a Sunday morning. And we were trying to figure how many people's adopted in there right now. I want to think that we're getting close to 30. And it is kids after kids after. Every Bible class has 2 and 3 kids adopted. And it's because so many opened their homes up to foster kids through all this and adoptions. And it is just, it's one of those things that now all these children are going to Bible class together and going to school together, and they've all been. And I know when John Cree first found out, and he was a little, feeling like he said, "I feel different, Mom." I was showing him, and I'm like, "These your cousins are adopted. Your little best friend in class is adopted. You just didn't realize that, And I'm like, there's nothing different about it. It's not. I know you feel different, but there's absolutely nothing except, if anything, you're extra special.
I mean. Yeah, I think it's definitely more like when we were going through it, we didn't know anybody. We didn't know anybody that adopted, didn't know anybody who was adopted, definitely didn't know anybody that was struggling with fertility. And I think for me, I've connected with people on social media that I've never met them in person, but I would consider a very close friend that we just met through my blog when I started it, and just people who I think it's okay to be. It's not always easy. It's okay to be honest when you're having a hard time and like
vulnerable and there to share it. Yes.
Yeah. Because for me, the people that I've met on social media that were so helpful were going through the same things and not trying to just hide behind, oh, it'll happen when it'll happen, or it's easy. And it's not easy, but anything that's worth doing is difficult, So, yeah.
I remember you and I were at some conference too, or out of town, and some girl found you in the room, and she had a bad story, and she came up to you, and she's like, I just relate, like you didn't even know her, but she already felt a connection with you because she had related. And
I think that going through like fertility stuff outside of just the adoption journey is like, I feel like when I meet somebody, I know. Like, they don't have to say anything. They don't have to like tell me where they are.
You just want to hug them.
I just can tell. And then Rich was like, you're being so weird. And I was like, I'm telling you, like, she's having a hard time. Like, and then 2 years later, they'll be like, hey, I read your book. Hey, we struggled. Hey. And I'm like, and Rich was like, how did you know that? I'm like, it's just, you just know sometimes, when you meet somebody that's heartbroken, you just know. And the fertility journey is not, there's nothing good about it. It's just hard. And so I think leaning on and even if I tell my husband, my sister, you just need to be a friend and listen. Those people aren't looking for advice. They just need you to hear their heart and their struggles and let them just talk through it.
I'm sure. Or just to know in any situation, I don't know about the infertility, but in any situation, just to know that what you're feeling, if you can talk to someone else and just tell me what I'm feeling is not weird. Or just tell me what I'm feeling is okay. There's another side to this.
I'm going to be okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. We did a podcast last week, and I'm not sure when it'll air coming up, though, but it was talking also about anxiety as teenagers and things like that. And that's just knowing when you go through things that you're not alone is a huge part of the battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having some support system in some form or fashion. And that is what, like I said, I love about social media. It can be so cruel and it can be so mean in this world, but it can be a means of help.
It really can. Yeah.
To support. If you are struggling with fertility in any way, or just, like I said, feeling that tug for adoption, Hillary's book, Blessed by Adoption, is great. You can also Google and find different information and means. I personally do not have just an adoption agency I recommend. I think you got to pray about it. I think it's good and bad in almost all of them. I don't know about you, Hillary.
Yeah, we went through 3 different ones, and they've changed names. There's, so I'd hate to recommend somebody.
That's me too.
People. But I know there's lots of good ones, and there's so many resources now.
Well, the birth mother that carried John Crew for us, she, after all that time of being with an agency, she didn't even find us through that agency. When I told you they said that he was going to live and be healthy, she just went and Googled people wanting to adopt, people waiting for adoptions. And she said she was 20 minutes into the Google search, and it popped up our picture. And she said it just did something to her. She said when y'all's picture popped up, and she said, I just got this feeling. And she said the first sentence in all capital letters said, wishing for a baby boy. We were open to any race. We were open to disability, but we asked for a baby boy. We were praying for John Crew Puckett. And she said she looked down at her belly and said, he's right here.
Oh.
And within 40 minutes, she and I were texting one another. So she called the number attached to our picture on a Google search, and then that agency contacted me and said, no, you don't need to talk on the phone. You can only text. Don't ask questions. They've got all their stipulations. And it was quick because she was already so far along. And so 40 minutes, she and I were connected.
Yeah.
And so it was amazing. It was definitely the way it was meant to be.
I know. It's crazy. You can't describe it.
No.
Really just.
And our agency didn't even work in the state that she was in. They had to piggyback another agency. So it doesn't necessarily work out that way.
So Violet is half sisters with my oldest. And the only reason we were able to adopt her, since we didn't live in Florida, was because we had a sibling. Okay. So we had to go through a different agency that we'd never even heard of. We didn't know anything about him. And our home study was through Nashville, and it only had a month left, and she was born 2 weeks early.
Okay, we were borderline too with the home study stuff, and ours was out of Nashville. Thank goodness the lady was God sent.
Yeah, ours was too. And with Violet's agency, it was way easier than with Trice's, but just very helpful, very sweet. But same, the agency and the attorneys were like, hey, when she leaves the hospital, you don't speak to her, don't whatever. And I'm alone, so I check out of the hospital, and I went straight to her house, took her lunch, everything they told me.
Of course, you did,
do,
Hillary.
I was like, why would I not? I couldn't wait to just visit with her and not be at the hospital and not have somebody, hearing about what we're saying and what we're talking about, and just.
You just wanted to love on her. You just wanted to love on her.
Yeah, and it was great.
Yeah. It's all the adoption stuff is just amazing. So if you're feeling it again, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to give it a try. Don't be afraid to go for it. My personal full adoption story will be coming up. I'm going to share it with LG on a later episode. But I did want to say I have no desire to ever be in a public office or hold a position, not at this point anyways, but I have always said that I would love to be a part of them helping adoptions more. It is it's incredibly shameful how expensive it is to adopt a child in this world. And I said we should, they should get back that credit, at least in taxes or something, because you're helping so much in so many different ways and avenues. But I definitely would love to be an advocate for that one day, to help people. There's so many good people out there would love to adopt that just can't even afford it.
Well, and same with going through fertility. You shouldn't have to pick IVF or adoption.
You're right.
And that they're equally as expensive. Like, that's just,
and I don't know that side of it. I've never thought of that, but you're exactly
crazy.
right.
It's not fair. Like, I mean, I know that I guess insurance that's a whole nother thing, but like, why would they not cover? They didn't cover any medicine or anything at the time. I don't know if they still do or not, but I know they don't cover IVF or IUIs, any of that. So
it's so unfortunate. And
it's just crazy.
And it can get so expensive, and you don't know how. Yes. Yeah. Don't be afraid to reach out to us if we could help you in any way. And we've definitely been blessed with our 4 little blessings in this world. 4 so far. I say it, my family feels complete, but you never know what God has in store for you.
Oh, I'd have 3, 4, or 5 more, but Rich is hard. No, he is not anymore.
He don't know how many animals you're going to bring home next week.
Yeah, that's probably why he tells me yes. He's like, just get another animal. No more.
He can't tell you no for anything. You could bring one home tomorrow.
Yeah, I tried. Yeah, no. He likes that they can buckle themselves up and
it is nice.
Bag and
it is nice, and I'm loving the teenage years too. It's fun watching your kids become your friends too, and like that, seeing them become little adults and celebrate each thing in life with them too. But thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast, Hillary.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
So thank you, and stay tuned for the next podcast that I'll have coming up, and be sure and subscribe.